Hello student, welcome back to a new video. In this video we will cover the topic Icse class 7 history, chapter number 2 in the book by the book Trail, the spread of Christianity. So let's get started. Medieval period in Europe. The medieval period in Europe was a period of transitions from the ancient to the modern world. It covered a span of about 900 to 1000 years, that is, from the early 7th century CE to the early 16th century CE. This periodization, however, is not universally accepted because of conflicting interpretation and opinions of different historians and scholars. So, in this paragraph, we are simply talking about the span or the time period of the medieval period in Europe. So, it was roughly a span of about 900 to 1000 years, which started from about the in the early 7th century and ended approximately in the early 16th century. However, these numbers are not accepted by the whole world, as different scholars and different historians have their own opinion on these countings. The decline of ancient Roman Empire. The mighty Roman Empire, with which India had established important trade relations during the height of its power, began to disintegrate by the end of 5th century CE. So, in this paragraph, it's simply telling the great Roman Empire started to decline in the end of 15th century CE. And in this paragraph, the writer is also telling and making us aware that India was having a trade relation with the Roman Empire when it was on its peak. Impact of barbarian invasions. One important reason for the fall of great empire was the repeated attacks by various Germanic tribes such as Goths, the Vandals, and the Franks. These raids are sometimes referred to as the barbarian invasions. These invasions penetrated deep into Roman territory and plundered and ravaged it. Even the magnificent city of Rome was not spared. These tribes gradually settled down and assumed control of the western part of the Roman Empire. Political and economic crises in the Roman Empire were other important reasons for its downfall. So, let's now talk about the impact of the barbarian invasions, or what are the barbarian invasions. One of the important factors that led to the downfall of the Roman Empire is the barbarian invasions. Now, you will be thinking that what are barbarian invasions? So, the invasions or the attacks by the Germanic tribes like the Goths or the Vandals or the Franks were known as barbarian invasions. So these invasions or these invaders deeply affected the Roman territory and plundered it and ravaged it from its roots. Even the important city like Rome was also not spared. It was also invaded by these German tribes. So the German tribes was successful in invading and capturing the western part of the Rome or western part of the Rome, but they were Rome or the sorry Rome not, but they were able to capture the western part of the Roman Empire, but they were not easily able to capture the eastern part of the Roman Empire, as it was having greater economic values and greater unity in people. And some other and because of the economic crisis and political crisis in the Western Roman Empire, there were also some other important factors that led to the downfall of the Roman Empire. Byzantium, birth of a new empire. In around 395 CE, the Roman Empire was divided into two parts, Eastern and Western. The eastern part of the Roman Empire was known as Byzantium. Its capital was Constantinople, present-day Istanbul. The Byzantium Empire was also attacked by the barbarian tribes, but it proved to be more resilient than the Western counterpart. It successfully withstood the onslaughts and preserved some of the great legacies of the glorious Roman Empire. The Germanic tribes had, however, lived for more than a century on the borders of the Roman Empire and were familiar with the Roman culture. They were semi-civilized and brought with them their own traditions and culture. As the unity of Western Europe ended, new forms of government and new centers of power had to be found. One uniting factor was Christianity and the Roman Church. So, now let's talk about Byzantium, birth of a new empire. In around about the years of 395 CE, the Roman Empire was divided into two parts, the Eastern Empire and the Western Empire. The eastern part of the Roman Empire was called to be known as Byzantium. Its capital was Constantinople. If you remember, children, it's the same Constantinople, the same city to which the famous king Constantine shifted his capital from Rome to a new city and named it as Constantinople. Maybe it would be some factors that the Eastern Empire was not easy to be captured, as it was always been an important center of political and social rises. So it was for sure that if it's a king's capital and always been an important center for the people, so it would have a strong defense force and a strong architecture and agriculture. So these would be some factors which helped the Eastern Empire not to be captured easily by the Turks or the Germans. So now let's go ahead. So Constantinople is the present day Istanbul. Byzantium Empire was also attacked by the barbarian tribes, but it proved to be more powerful than the Western one and within the Western counterpart. It successfully withstood the onslaughts and preserved some of the great legacies of the glorious Roman Empire. The Germanic tribes or the barbarian tribes, however, lived for more than 100 years on the borders of the Europe. They were also familiarized with the Roman culture. The Germanic tribes were semi-civilized and brought with them their own tradition and culture. As the unity of Western Europe ended, new forms of government was to be found. One uniting factors of the people was Christianity and the Roman Church, and as on that time Christianity was gaining great grounds and was winning people's heart very fastly. So now let's talk about spread of Christianity. The spread of Christianity was one of the most important developments in early medieval Europe. The Germanic tribes that over in Italy left the Church of Rome, unharmed. The church was allowed to retain its spiritual power over all the Christians. In 400 CE, most people in Europe were non-Christians. Within 500 years, by about 900 CE, most Europeans had been converted to Christianity. In every European state, Christianity had become the state religion. The conversion of a king or feudal lord was usually followed by a mass conversion of his subjects. As Christianity spread, the power and wealth of the church multiplied. Christian monks, fired by religious fervors, organized themselves into religious orders. These orders built great monasteries where the monks stayed and pursued their religious mission. The monks also pursued the art and the learning in all kinds of subjects. The monastery became great centers of scholarship, art, literature, and religious studies. Majestic churches were built in every town and city. Educational institutes such as the international renowned University of Cambridge and Oxford evolved from the monasteries. As wealth and power of a church increased, it became increasingly conservative and authoritarian, demanding from every Christian unqualified obedience, loyalty, and total submission to its dictates. So now let's talk about the spread of Christianity. As in the medieval Europe or the medieval period in the Europe, Christianity, I already told you that Christianity was gaining its grounds. The Germanic tribes which used to overrun Italy left the Church of Rome unharmed. It means that the Germanic tribes who were leading Italy now unharmedly left the Church of Rome. The church was allowed to retain spiritual power over all the Christians. Means now the church was given the rights to its spiritual to revive its spiritual power in all over the Christians. In about 400 CE, the 90% of the Europeans were non-Christians. Within 500 years, the about 900 C, almost about 900 C, most of the Europeans had been converted into Christianity. In every European state, almost in every European state or town, Christianity became the state religion. In the previous chapter, we discussed that in the beginning, Christianity was just a minority of religions, but in around 900 C, it became as the majority of religion in Europe. Whenever a king or feudal it was also because of factor that whenever a king or a feudal leader or feudal lord wanted to convert himself in Christianity and converted himself in Christianity, then many great amount of people followed by him converted into Christianity. We can simply say that the conversion of a king or a feudal lord was usually followed by a mass conversion of its subjects. It's common if a great leader or if a great scholar is doing a work, so everyone will be inspired by him or her that if they are doing this work and they are on great heights, so why don't we do this work? The people imagine that today also people imagine that if person is doing a work and he or she is on a great height, so why shouldn't we also follow the same routine or the same work? So maybe one day we will also follow the same heights. So Christian monks who organized themselves into religious orders and formed and built great monasteries where the monks stayed and pursued their religious missions. The monks also persuaded the art and learning of all kinds of subjects. The monastery became the great center of education, scholarship, art, literature, and religious studies. Majestic churches or the glorious churches were all built almost in every town and city. Educational institutes such as international renowned university. So it's a fact there that we all have listened the name of the University of Cambridge or University of Oxford, and we also think them to be very great universities, and actually they are. But very few of the students still know that these big universities are evolved from the monasteries. So remember this topic that these universities, mainly the Cambridge and Oxford University, evolved from the monasteries. As the wealth and power of a church increased, it became increasingly conservative and authoritarian, demanding from every Christian unqualified obedience, loyalty, total submission to its dictates. So, in these lines, we are saying that our book or the writer is trying to tell us that as the superiority or the power of the church was increasing, it was becoming more conservative or authoritarian. It means that it was becoming more it was the leader, the dictator dictates wanted all the Christians to be more loyal to their religion and give more importance to their religion and follow the policies of their religion by clear heart by a clear heart. So there's a yellow box you can see, on the top there is written discuss. So in ancient India, students were educated in Guru's ashram. This in the about India in the ancient India, the students were educated in the Guru ashram or the Gurukul. We have studied in class 6 we have studied this about the Vedic civilization, about the Gurukuls. So recall them and then answer. Or but if you want to answer this question in the comment box, you can also take the help of your previous year books. So, in medieval Europe, monasteries served as centers of education. Discuss the similarities and differences between these two institutions. So you can give, if you want, so you can give the answer for increasing your memory in the comment box. Now let's move on to the next topic. The Crusades. In the 11th century CE, the Muslim Turks invaded the land of the Christian Empire of Constantinople. Earlier, they had captured Jerusalem, which was a part of the Holy Land of Christians. The Pope appeals to all Christians to join the Crusades or the Holy Wars against the Turks to recover their Holy Land. Between 11th and 13th century CE, the Christians led 8 military expeditions against the Turks. The Crusades failed to achieve their main objective, but they brought about several significant changes in medieval Europe. So the book is, or the writer is telling us that about 11th century CE, the Muslim Turks invaded the Holy Land of Christians, Constantinople. Earlier, they had captured the Holy Land of Christians, Jerusalem, which was a very important land to the Christians. The Pope or the head of the Christians appealed to all the Christians to join the Crusades or the Holy Wars. So here you will be thinking that what are actually the Crusades? So Crusades are not very much different from the Holy Wars. Like they were the wars fought by the Christians to regain to regain their holy land, or for the revival of their holy land and their beliefs related to that place. So So it was not much different from the wars, but they were the wars who were fought for a religious or a holy matter, for the revival of their holy beliefs. So the Pope appealed to Christians to join the Crusades or the holy wars against the Turks to recover their holy land. Between around 11th and 13th century CE, the Christians almost led 8 military expeditions against Turks, means they led 8 military fights against the Turks. The Crusade failed to achieve their main objective, but brought several significant changes in medieval Europe. It's simply telling that unfortunately Crusades mm, failed to achieve their main goal, but they brought several changes which include: in the course of their travel to the Holy Land, the Crusaders came in contact with the superior civilization and culture of the Greeks and the Turks. They assimilated the best element of these cultures and started the process of the revival of the Western education and learning, paving the way for Renaissance. Yes. So, in this paragraph, the lines are saying that the Crusades were in the the Crusades were main objective, and the Crusades were in the fight of regaining their holy land. But although they were not able to achieve their main objective, but the Crusaders came in contact with the superior civilization and culture of the Greeks and the Turks, which helped them to be more civilized and use the best elements of their culture. And this also started the process of revival of the Western education and learning, paving the way for the Renaissance. This means that they started the process of Western education and learning. That led to the Renaissance period. So, earlier in this period of Christianity, we have studied that the Christian monasteries used to give educations, but after the Crusades came into superior civilizations, they started the process of Western educations, which led to the Renaissance period. The Crusaders learned the use of gunpowder and the guns from the Turks, though these two discoveries contributed to decline of feudalism. The armored knights had outlived their usefulness and their services were no longer required. In these lines, it's simply saying that now the Crusaders have learned the use of guns and gunpowders from the Turks. So, as in the later times, the war was fought by some armed knights. Now, because they have learned how to use guns, and they have started a process of Western education, so it led to the decline of feudalism. So now, what is feudalism? Feudalism is simply something that the spread in the medieval period, what all practices mainly was processed at the main practices, the feudal lords were there. Feudalism system was can't say that was based on the land, that the person how much a person owns land. The more the person owns the land, the more powerful he or she is. So, there were some more practices followed in the medieval period of Europe. And so now knives were no longer used, and the next point is Europe re-establishes direct trade contact with other parts of the world. The Crusaders got a taste of the luxurious life to the east. To meet the demand for luxury items, European traders began to establish trade links with the East. As trade increased, the economy of Europe flourished. So, as they were the Crusaders who was traveling and enemies, fighting against the enemies, now got a taste, and they visited the eastern part of the Europe and got a taste at how luxuriously and comfortably the people of East were living their life. As the people of East area of East captured by was not efficiently captured by any Germanic tribe, or only some part of the East was captured, and like they were living a more comfortable life than them. So to meet the demands for the luxury items, the traders of the Europe now started the trade relations, the trade links with the East. As trade increased, the economy of the Europe flourished greatly. Many new towns and cities were established. Traders and manufacturers demanded better conditions of law and order, and a better system of law. They paid taxes to the king and helped him to raise a large army. This led to increase in the authority of the king and a decline in the power of feudal lords. So now, as a trade and economy and manufactures and increases in the state, so it was demanding a better conditions of law and order. If there will not a better condition of law, then there will be that will lead to conflicts between people. And if there are a great system of law, all things and all trades will take place according to the law, and it will lead to the decrease in the number of conflicts and lead to a peaceful living. Now many trades and many towns and cities were established. The people paid taxes to the king, which helped him to raise greater or larger armies, or to take care of the people of the state more efficiently. So now this led to an increase in the authority of the king and decline in the power of the feudal lords. So now, as the king was becoming more powerful day by day, the law and order was established. All the people paid tax to the king, and law and order, and the judge of the law and order, or the law ministry, was king. So now his power was increasing, and there the Europe seen a decline in the power of feudal lords. The feudal lords, I already told you that the feudalism, the lords who was related to feudalism were the feudal lords who followed the later the later states of the medieval Europe. So did you know they Sorry, students, I just realized that sorry for the mistake. I just realized that I forget to swipe up the pages. So now whatever I explained was from the top of the page. Whatever I explained was from the top of the page till there. So please, you can open your books and reverse the lecture. If you had any inconvenience, I'm sorry for that. So now you can see the blue box there. Did you know? The Third Crusade, which was from 1189 to 92 CE, was an attempt by European leaders to reconquer the Holy Land, Syria, which had taken from the Christian during the First Crusade. So the Third Crusade was an attempt by the European leaders to reconquer the Holy Land, Jerusalem, from Saladin, the Sultan of the at that time Syria, who had taken it from the Christian during the First Crusade. Richard I, Richard the Lionheart of England, and Philip I of France ended their conflicts to lead the next crusade. They were joined by Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I, also known as Frederick Barbarossa, who unfortunately died by drowning before reaching the Holy Land. So the Richard the Lionheart of England and Frederick I led to the end of their enmity to as a Christian to lead to the next crusade. They were joined by the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick I, who unfortunately died by drowning before reaching the Holy Land. Richard I played a vital role by conquering Acre, the world Muslim city in the Gulf of Haifa. He also finalized a treaty by which Jerusalem remained under Muslim control, but unarmed Christian pilgrims were allowed to visit the city. The failure to regain the Holy Land led to the call for a fourth crusade 6 years later. So, as we stated earlier, the crusades failed and they did not achieve their main objective, which was a regain of their holy lands. But Richard I made easy way for the Christian pilgrims, that he signed a treaty with the Sultan who captured the Holy Land, that Jerusalem remained under Muslim control, but unarmed Christian pilgrims were allowed to visit the city. So that failure to regain the Holy Land led to the call of the fourth crusade 6 years later. Now let's come to the yellow box, knowledge of India. Takshila is an ancient university and it also regarded as an important Buddhist center of learning. It was founded by, according to the Indian epic Ramayana, by Bharat, the younger brother of Rama. Buddhist literature, especially the Jatakas, mention it as the capital of kingdom of Gandhar and as a great center of learning. After partition, the ruins of Takshila are now in Pakistan. So, like I told you that there were gurukuls. So, one of the important gurukul for the higher education was Takshila University of the ancient India. But it was regarded, and it was also regarded as an important center of learning. Important Buddhist center of learning. It was found by, according to the Indian epic Ramayana, by Bharat, the younger brother of Lord Ram. One Buddhist literature, especially the Jatakas, mention it as the capital of Gandhar, kingdom of Gandhar, and as a great center of learning. After partition, the ruins of Takshila are now in Pakistan. Monasteries and their impact. The Church of the Rome fostered religious and cultural unity in Western Europe in the medieval Europe by the end of the 5th century CE. Christian churches had been established in almost every village, town, and city. The duties of priest or the clergy were to preach and perform religious rites and help the poor and needy. So now come to the topic monastery and their impacts. The Church of the Roman Church fostered religious and cultural unity. Like they made a strong bond of unity across the Western Europe. The medieval period in the medieval period, by the end of the 5th century, Christian churches had been established in almost every village, town, city, and state. The duties of the clergy or the priest or the priests are the persons who preach the Lord and help the needy. So these were their duties, to preach and perform religious rites in front of the God and help the poor and needy. So now let's move to the next page. So the priests had to live among the people. Some of the more pious priests, however, choose to live in remote, isolated places far away from human habitation. They lived there as hermits and were known as monks. These monks became important members of the medieval society, and the places where they lived came to be known as monasteries. Monks did not marry the devoted service of humanity. They did not marry, they devoted their entire life to the spiritual matters and to the service of humanity. The women who followed the same path came to be known as nuns. They lived in separate monasteries known as nunneries or convents. The life of a nun was devoted to prayer and service of the poor, the sick, and the oppressed. Nuns too could not marry. So they've asked, according to the rule of the priest or rules for the priest, that they had to live among the people and teach them the religious duties of one's according to Christianity. But some pious priest or some important or big priest, however, choose to live in remote, isolated place. There they want to worship gods in silence. The places where the priests lived came to be known as monastery, and these priests came to be known as monks. Monks did not marry, and they devoted their entire life to the spiritual matters and devoted their entire life to God. Monks were an important part of the medieval period of Europe. The women who followed the same path came to be known as nuns. They lived in a separate monastery came to be known as nunneries or the convents. The life of a nun was also devoted to the prayer and service of poor, the sick, and the oppressed. Nuns too could not marry. Life in the monasteries was simple and orderly. Monks and nuns had to follow a very rigid code of conduct. A monastery was usually a large, strong, and simple building surrounded by gardens, orchards, fields, and ponds. Inside the abbey was a small church, living quarters for the monks and nuns, a kitchen and storeroom. Attached to most monasteries were hospitals, schools, and libraries. Monastery played a very important role in medieval Europe. The nuns educated children and treated the sick and the wounded. Very often, the barren land around the monastery was brought into cultivation and made productive. Architecture, mural paintings, wood carving, and stained glass painting developed and flourished in monasteries. The monasteries also provided shelter for travelers and gave food and clothing to the poor and needy. They grew medicinal herbs in their gardens, which created a new interest in botany. So, in these paragraphs, we are simply that the monks and the nuns led to a very simple, orderly, and disciplined life. They had to follow the same code of conduct every day, and the monastery was usually a large and a simple and strong building surrounded by greenery and ponds. Inside the abbey, there was a small church in which the monks and the nuns preached to God. There were living quarters for the monks and nuns, a kitchen, and some storerooms. Attached to most monasteries were some hospitals or the educational centers such as schools or libraries. Monastery played a very important role in the education of the children in the medieval Europe. The nuns educated children and treated all the sick and the wounded persons. And usually the land around the monastery was brought under cultivation and made productive architecture, mural painting, the wood carving or stained glass painting developed and flourished in monasteries, as they were also taught in some monasteries. Monasteries provided shelter for travelers, gave clothing to the poor and needy. They grew medicinal herbs in their gardens, and which created a new interest in botany and led to the education for the botany in medieval Europe. Hordes. Do you think the functions of monastery and convents popularized Christianity among the people? Give reason for this question. You can also answer in the comment box. I will be very happy to see your comments. And children, if you are learning something, a single point from the video, please share it to other students also, that they can also learn from this. The greatest contribution of the monastery was in the field of education. Some of the monasteries later developed into the famous secular universities such as University of Oxford and Cambridge. Besides religious texts, secular subjects such as history, philosophy, medicine, law and astrology were also taught in these universities. The printing press and paper had not yet been invented, so the monks wrote books by hand on parchments. Most of the books were copies of Bible and prayer books, and copies of Latin and Greek books on secular subjects. These books were a very useful source of knowledge of the ancient and medieval civilization in Europe. So, as I already told you, that the monastery led contributed the medieval Europe in the field of education very vastly. Some of the monastery, I also told you this point earlier, that some of the monasteries evolved today, such as the world famous universities such as the Oxford and Cambridge University. In monasteries, the subjects which were taught were philosophy, medicine, law, astrology, and the religious text was also taught to the students. The printing press and paper had not yet been invented, so the monks themselves wrote the copies of the books. They were usually the copy of Bible or the prayer books on some secular subjects of Greek and Latin books on secular subjects. These books were very useful source of knowledge on the ancient and the medieval civilization in Europe. Think and answer. Some Christian monasteries evolved into international renowned universities like the University of Cambridge and Oxford, as I told you earlier. Which famous university in ancient India evolved from a Buddhist monastery? What similarities would you find in the subject taught these universities? So, as to the answer for this question, you can also find some of the part of the answer in this chapter only, and some from your previous year books. So, please make the answer and please write it in the comment box. Know your source. There you can see there is a yellow box where a painting is there. You can see to it. So it's a mural. It's a mural in Bachkova Monastery, Bulgaria, Europe. Mural painting flourished in the monasteries of medieval Europe. So, as I already told, that mural paintings greatly evolved in the medieval Europe period, and this painting you can learn. It can come in exams as a picture study. So, murals in Bachkova Monastery, Bulgaria, Europe. So, the red lines you can see there. In the photos, the red lines are seen to be blue, but I'm underlining, circling them, that you can get an idea. So, to the answer this question also, please drop the answer in the comment box. I will be very happy to see it, and if you will do it, I will pin your comments I will pin the first comment for the answer of this question only, and I will like all your comments. Why do you think the monks created these religious themed murals? Now, the green box, the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, goal for quality education. Christian monasteries emerged as important Centers of Learning and Education during the medieval period examine the contribution of Oxford and Cambridge University to the promotion of quality education globally. Please answer this question also in the comment box. Now, there are some quick notes for the role of Christian monasteries in medieval Europe. I am just quickly revising them and then we will just pack up after reading the biography. So, first point, build schools and educated children. Second point, build hospitals, treated the sick and the wounded. Third, established libraries. All books were handwritten by the monks. Fourth, cultivated crops, grew medicinal herbs and cultivated orchards, provided shelter to the travelers, gave food and clothing to the poor and needy. Fifth, developed architecture, mural paintings, wood carving, stained glass paintings. Values, we are the first yellow box, values and educated life skills. Some people devote their entire lives to the service of humanity. We should be inspired by people who help the poor, the sick and the oppressed. We can also spend 1 or 2 hours in a week helping needy people. What are the ways in which you can help the poor and needy in a neighborhood? So as we all know that helping the needy and poor is a very good charity work, and we all should do that. So write 1 or 2 ways in the comment box by which you can help the poor and needy or in your neighborhood. Now the second yellow box, a biography. Michelangelo was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet of Renaissance period. He is mostly known for painting the ceiling of Sistine Chapel. It took him 4 years to complete the painting. The painting contains over 300 figures and shows 9 episodes from the book of Genesis. So by reading this, we can imagine how great this person was at art. He was an Italian sculptor, painter, architecture, and poet of Renaissance period. One of the famous paintings he was famous for painting the ceiling of Sistine Chapel. It took him 4 years. Don't you think it's too long? So how much long period is this? And in this period, he painted about over 300 figures and showed 9 episodes from the book of Genesis. Can you imagine? On a ceiling there's a painting on the whole ceiling, and that painting is representing the 9 episodes of book of Genesis. So children, thank you for today, and keep connected to me and the third chapter of this book, which is the birth of Prophet Muhammad and spread of Islam, you will get on my channel. Please like, share my video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon for getting the latest updates of my channel. Thank you. All the best for examinations. Have a nice day ahead.